Welcome to an episode of Holding All the Cards. My name is Daniel. I go by Kieran Mode on the forums, and today's going to be a quick one. What I want to talk about is a buyer's guide to get into competitive play. I personally feel like the most important thing about whether or not someone's going to get into a game is just price. I think if a game's free, anyone's going to give it a shot. If a game costs $1,000, a lot of people are just going to be priced out. So if you're watching this show is designed to make people better players. You want to be competitive, right? So like, I think if you want to play for fun, any amount of cards will do, right? You don't really care about, having good cards. You just care about having any cards. The purpose of this episode here is to say, okay, well, what do you need to be good, right? So this is designed more for people that have already bought one core set or two core sets, or maybe they bought some other packs, or maybe they bought someone's collection, or maybe they have nothing and like someone's just showing the video like, okay, here's what you buy. So my personal price point that I'm putting for this is just $100. And the reason for that is I think $100 is a really good price point. I think if like the sales pitch you make to someone is, hey, look, the game costs $100. You're in, you're competitive, you can go to tournaments, you can build multiple decks. That's a good thing. Like that's a really good sales pitch to me of like, okay, I can get into this if it's $100. So I'm gonna assume that you're buying it online, like you're buying it through like Cool Stuff Inc. or eBay or Amazon or whatever. That's the price point. $100. We'll go from there. I'll start with the disclaimer that the best way to buy cards is buy used. So look online, see if someone's selling their collection, and if someone is, just buy it off of them. If you buy it off of them, you're going to get it at a way cheaper price than anything else. But if you can't do that, or like sometimes I've noticed sometimes people sell collections, but their collection's so big that they're charging like $200 or even $300 for it. At which point you're like, why am I paying so much for this? I could just buy a Magic constructed deck for that price. So I'm gonna try to keep this under 100, where you can just go to Cool Stuff and buy it. So we have 3 factions per each side, right? You have the Sith, the Scum, and the Smugglers, and then Light Side has the Jedi, Rebels, and Smugglers. The thing to note is most dark side decks are monocolor, so they generally work independently from each other. Light side decks are different. They mix colors a lot more. So my guide here is designed more towards you get the dark side ones in order, and then you get just enough on light side before you start expanding. Because also light side decks, they tend to pool from different sources too. So, and what I mean by that is a lot of dark side decks, their effectiveness is brought near each other. So like, for example, Navy, every single Navy deck for the most part runs Tarkin, Lar, and Chimera. They're all found in one expansion. So I mean, at that point, it's like just buy the expansion. Whereas like my favorite light side deck, it has let me see here. It has 6 distinct pods in it. Some of them, like 4 of them are 2-ofs. It has 6 distinct pods, and they're all found in different packs, right? You can't find 2 pods that are in the same pack. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with them being spread out. It's just harder to get. So if you're trying to be efficient, you kind of want to focus more towards the dark side, because that's just how a lot of light side decks are. They're all over the place. So to get a good base for dark side, what you have to do is you have to buy Galactic Ambitions, Between the Shadows, and Imperial Entanglements. That will get you a really good base for Navy, Sith, and Scum. So just buying those 3 packs by themselves, you're good. You go online, they'll generally cost you $20 a piece, so you're talking about $60 there. Now for light side. Light side has a ton of different decks that are viable. I'm not going to go over all of them, but what I will say is there's 2 cores for light side decks that are the most relevant of... Actually, sorry. There's 3 and I'll go over why one of them I'm gonna take out. So of the two that are the most relevant for these purposes, one is Spark decks with Zeb, the other one is Owen Luke decks. And they do different things. So the benefit of Spark decks is Spark lets you bounce, like, play cards off the top of your deck, and then Zeb has a Slicer which lets you play enhancements off the top of your deck. So the two of them together, they can just create incredible resource ramp. And really, since Zeb came out, that has been the prevailing Spark deck. Going the other way, Owen and Luke, they have a really degenerate combo that allows you to deal a potential 5 damage to an objective for only 2 mana. That kind of ability is tough to overlook. Then also you have Owen himself. He lets you play Luke for 1 mana, so you can get on the board really quickly too, but you have a lot of burst damage also. So both of those ramp pretty hard, and both of them are kind of the choice decks that people play. The last one would be Falcon Jedi. I'm going to say no on that one because it's just being played less now, and on top of that, I don't think it's wise to buy the Falcon. So let's table the Falcon thing. I'll get to that in a little bit. So you need to build the Owen Luke deck, and you need to build the Spark deck. Luckily, within the 3 big boxes, right? You're buying Between the Shadows, you're buying Galactic Ambitions, you're buying Imperial Entanglements. You already have Kanan and you already have Luke. Now, both of those decks contain Yoda as part of their core. So you're going to buy Yoda. Yoda's found in Join Us or Die. Then for Owen, he's found in Chain of Command. And for Zeb, he's found in a Wretched Hive. So far we're at 3 big boxes and 3 force packs. The 3 big boxes, Between the Shadows, Imperial Entanglements, and Galactic Ambitions. And your 3 force packs are Join Us or Die, Command and Control, and not Command and Control, Chain of Command, and what's it called? A Wretched Hive. You get those 3 force packs and you get the 3 big boxes, you can immediately compete. Right? You have 3 good dark side decks, 2 good light side decks. There's probably like a 3rd light side deck you can cobble together between the rest of the pods, but those would be your main ones. That's really what you're working with. You go online, it's going to cost you $90. So $90, you can be competitive, and then you fill in the gaps as you go. Like, as more cards come out that you like, or you see a deck that you want to build, you can buy cards to add to your collection, but your initial investment isn't going to be all that heavy. And that's the most important thing, like keeping that price point down so you can kind of talk yourself into the game, or maybe someone else talks you into the game. So that's the first thing. The second thing I'd like to talk about, so like that's my list of the cards that I think people should buy, like my guide. Like, buy that, play the game, see if you like it, see if you can get good, and then move forward. The next thing I would say is, it's not just what you are going to buy in a proactive way, it's what you don't buy. So anything that you buy is fine, because I don't think there's one pack that is 5 duds in terms of like force packs. Like, I think every single expansion that you would buy of this game has at least one pod that has utility in competitive play. Some packs are obviously better than others, but the point here is that you're never going to waste money entirely, right? It's not like you're going to pay $15 at your local store, you open it, and it's all trash. That's not going to happen. Like, there's always going to be something. With that said, though, some of them are more efficient than others. Like some expansions have really useful cards, others have more niche cards, and it's really about value. So, for example, the Falcon is one of my favorite pods, and it's really one of the favorite pods of the entire community. The problem is, the expansion that it's found in, you have to buy 2 expansions for it because it's all one of, similar to the core set. The difference is the core set has good cards, Edge of Darkness has really crappy cards. So you're getting maybe 3 pods out of that entire thing, but it's going to cost you like $60 to get. That's just not worth it. That's like the last thing that you buy, I think. If you're building your collection, actually no, Hoth is the last thing you buy, then it's Edge of Darkness. Like Edge of Darkness and Hoth, those 2 just don't have enough value consistently to justify buying those early on, especially if you're looking to save some money along the way. So stay away from that. Stay away from the 2v2 expansion. Like the Wolfman Obi-Wan, it's a terrific pod. The problem is you're paying a lot of money, right? You're paying like $30 to get like 2 pods out of it. And those 2 pods are really good. Like Thunderflare is really good. Wolfman Obi-Wan's really good. Neither one of them are necessary. Like they can both be replaced by other pods. So like don't burn your money on that early. The other thing I would say is don't buy a core set. I think you can get away with not having the core set. The only thing in the core set that's absolutely required is the tokens. But you can get tokens off players. Like if you go to your local game store, look for whoever has acrylic tokens. There's going to be somebody that has acrylic tokens, which means they won them or bought them in some other way. And that means they have a whole bunch of cardboard tokens sitting in their house somewhere collecting dust. Just say, hey man, I'm getting into the game. Do you have tokens? Because one core set gives you enough tokens to play a game, and everyone that's playing this game in all likelihood has bought 2 core sets at least. So if you go to them and say, hey, I just need tokens, yeah, they're going to have plenty of tokens. They'll give you tokens. If you say I'm new and I need tokens, someone will give you tokens. They'll give you a Death Star. They'll give you affiliation cards. Like you're not going to need to buy the core set to have that stuff for yourself. So you can be cheap that way. Or buy 1 core set. Like if you buy 1 core set, you get the tokens, you get some extra cards, but you don't need them. Like the cards are good. There's nothing wrong with any of the core set cards. In the same way that there's nothing wrong with any of the other expansion cards. It's just what, for the purpose of this video, what I'm making is just a way to say, okay, like I need to get in cheap, and I want to start playing and I want to start getting good. So that's what this is designed for. And so like if you're looking to pinch pennies along the way, that's how you pinch pennies. So to recap, step 1, see if you can buy a collection. If you can just buy a collection off somebody, you'll probably get it cheaper than any other way. Step 2, work off of the guide that I made here, right? You buy the 3 big box expansions, Galactic Ambitions, Between the Shadows, and Imperial Entanglements, and then you buy the 3 relevant force packs, Chain of Command, Join Us or Die, and a Wretched Hive. From there, you fill out the gaps. So I would say go to Card Game DB. That is where most of the forum activity happens. It's relevant. You go there and just start discussions. Look up old threads, see what people like, look up deck lists, and then from there you start buying different stuff. Or maybe you go to a tournament and just like see what cards people are playing, and then you decide to look at that. The other thing I would recommend, like highly recommend, is Yoda Man has a channel called Yoda's Hut. So I'll put a link in on like the website I have for his channel. So the great thing about Yoda Man's channel is he shows real-time development of cards. So basically here's how it goes. Whenever a new pack comes out, he always starts a thread and just says, hey, give me deck ideas for this new pack. And people will just throw deck ideas at him, and then he'll play them. Sometimes these decks crash and burn, sometimes they do well. It's not really about whether the decks are good or not. That's not what's important. What's important is you get a real-time look at how good a pod is, like how it flows, what people are thinking about the moment it comes out. So you can be current or you can look back. Either way, but you get to see what people's thoughts are on a certain pod, and there's video of it so you can see it played. So you're not just like looking at some card on the screen and like thinking, okay, I don't know what it does. Like, no, you get to see a guy actually play it. They're doing commentary on it, and you get a little bit more of a fuller experience on like, okay, that's a card I need, or that's a card I don't need. If you're looking to like decide what to buy, eventually you'll buy everything, right? Like if you're in this game and you like it, you're going to just start buying cards and you'll buy every single thing that's in the game. But when you're starting out, there might be some of that reservation. Like I definitely have reservations when I get into any game before I start like really committing money to it. So if someone were to come to me and say, hey, get into this game, it's $100, you're immediately competitive, and you just got to practice, and then you buy more cards as you go, that'd be great. Like I would love that. I would jump into that game. But most games can't do that. And the reason most games can't do that is metas just change too fast. And in our game, we have the benefit of the pod system, which I know people have complaints of, but the best thing about the pod system to me is that it creates a situation where because you're playing bad cards, cards can't ever break the game. But also, it doesn't take much for a card to get into the meta. So decks can break into the meta a lot quicker than you'd think. Like, there's so many pods that are just one pod away from being like its own thing. And then it's not like pods go out of the meta, right? Like, it's not like decks just immediately die the moment some new pod comes in. Like, unless a pod's incredibly oppressive, which we have a couple of those, but we don't have a ton of them. In every other game where you don't have the pod system, it only takes one card to completely change the dynamic of the entire meta. In ours, not so much. Like, you're going to need an absolute monstrous pod to really just like flip the meta on its head. That doesn't happen very often. More often than not, it's like, okay, new pod comes in, it's really strong. It makes some decks weaker, some decks stronger, but if you like a certain deck, you can still play it. Like, it takes a lot. It generally takes like multiple oppressive pods before you look at a deck and you're like, you know what? I just can't play this anymore. If you love a deck, you can keep playing it. And so like this list that I made here, this is probably the same list I've had for like almost a year, I think. Like, maybe it's not that long. Maybe it's like 7-8 months. But it's been almost the same list for a while because the meta, a lot of decks have come in, right? A lot of really good pods have come in. Hera's one of the best pods that we've seen in a while. But I don't think she's necessary. Like I don't think you have to buy her. And that's the most important thing. You don't have to buy these cards. Like, they're really good. They might even be better than the cards you have, but like these decks still work and you can still go win tournaments with them. Like, Tom Malucci's ran the same deck for like 3 years, but he's won a world championship and he's made the top cut each time. Like, it's fine. Like, you can keep running the same stuff, or you can get creative, and it doesn't really matter because that's the beauty of the pod system. Like, it takes forever to pods, like for a pod to truly die, like a deck to actually just bite the dust. It takes a lot of work for that to happen. But a lot of pods come in, right? Like, a lot of crazy decks can just come up out of nowhere and just shake up the meta. And I think that's also a great sales pitch for this game. So like, not only is it cheap to get into, you also have that knowledge of like your favorite deck's not going to die in 2 months. And also, you know, the game's not going to get stale, right? It's not like you're going to be playing against the same deck all the time. Like, people are going to be playing different stuff. But if you're the kind of person that like likes one deck and wants to stay to that one deck forever, you can reasonably do that as well. Anyway, so this has been my my little rant on what you should buy to be competitive. It's my own little buyer's guide. If you want like more detailed stuff, the forums is a better place for that. This is more like a jumping off point, getting started. What do I buy? Like, because I wish somebody would have had this when I started in the game. So this has been an episode of Holding All the Cards. Hope you enjoyed.